Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Julius Malema has come out swinging with big Drickus energy today. He gave remarks to the Gauteng membership in a speech which was publicized on a variety of platforms, and he is angry. He is trying to repossess his organization, the direction and the momentum of the EFF going to their next conference. So the way I'm going to do this video is I'm going to summarize the big ideas and big things that he said, and then I'm going to give my thoughts and reflections on that. So Julius Malema has denied outright that he had any aspirations to be the vice president of South Africa, as articulated in the reporting from Sunday Times. He's denied that he was involved in some side negotiation when the DA and the ANC were negotiating for this particular coalition. He said that he was not willing to be part of any coalition that included the Democratic Alliance. So that deals with that element. Then he has also said that they've never wronged anyone as the EFF. And he was referring here to the whole narrative that he was undermining or disrespecting Floyd Shivambu. So that's something that he directly referred to. He said that any issues which could have been raised internally and were not raised internally by those who claim to have such issues, those people are at fault because they had platform, they had access, proximity, they didn't raise those issues. And he also basically called Floyd Shivambu a coward for not raising those particular issues internally and making the moves that he made. So he's clearly recovered now from the shock of the moment and the shock of Floyd being able to do such a dramatic thing. So some initial comments. As a politician, you have to take back the narrative. It was important for Julius to start finding a way to take back the narrative, to start communicating on behalf of the economic freedom fighters. Otherwise, what happens is that the media continues to push story after story after story after story, and that then becomes the narrative. If you don't counter a narrative, you don't rebut a narrative or refute a narrative, that narrative then becomes the truth. And in public relations, in political communications, in media, oftentimes what is the perception is the reality. And this is a game of perception. It's a game of confidence where you have to retain the confidence of certain constituencies and audiences to be able to retain your momentum. And Julius Malema is an effective communicator, right? He is one of the best political public speakers on the continent right now. The speeches of Julius Malema have been watched in Ghana, in Tanzania, in Rwanda, in Togo, you name it, Namibia, you name it. He is an effective political commentator. You can see people have made TikToks even about some of his speeches simply because they have a virality to them. He's not a polished public speaker. He's not going to speak like Trevor Noah with a perfect diction, tone, enunciation, grammar, and, poise. But he's somebody who's like a brawler. He's like a Mike Tyson of public speaking because he can have an effective knockout, right, whenever he communicates. So this issue has clearly captured a lot of media attention, even from publications that were very critical of the EFF, but now they are putting the EFF front and center in their coverage. So many things have happened. Electricity is being further privatized, right? The Minister of Basic Education blocked a 10 billion tender. So much is happening. But the issue that has captivated the media is this particular issue. And when an issue captivates the media to this particular extent, you have to respond. So Julius had to come to this moment to demonstrate confidence, to demonstrate a fighting spirit, right? Pun intended. And he actually did that. Some more details around some of the stuff that he did and spoke about. Even the opening, the song choice, Maguliwe, which means let's fight, let's get it on. He's basically coming in with that DMX energy, Dogman X. He's coming in to say Magliwe, let the dogs bite. That's basically how he came in. He's checking the strength of the ground forces, checking to see whether or not the support is still there. Litmus test. You've got to do that litmus test, make sure that things are in order at the grassroots. And Julius Malema has been grassroots leader since COSAS. So this is not something that we should trivialize or undermine, because he's very effective at doing these things. Some of the stuff that he's also done is that he's called out those people who are on the fence, those people who have been keeping quiet and not particularly indicating where they stand, and basically saying you must go, hamba manje, go now, right? He said he doesn't want people who are going to use loyalty as a bargaining chip for position, right? And I think this is also useful for them to do, because rip out the Band-Aid, right? Band-Aid, sorry, not Band, yeah, Band-Aid, American names. Rip out that plaster. Just get it over and done with. Because if it's a drip, and media every week is reporting so-and-so leaves, so-and-so leaves, so that can really have damaging impact on their party. So he said, let's rip out the bandage and just go. He also then went into a discussion around the role of branches versus social media, how members must be cognizant of the party values, manifestos, ideologies, and not necessarily be influenced by social media conversations. He was also critical of mainstream media and made some very, very strong accusations, particularly about Newsroom Africa. He implied that there's a cozy relationship between Newsroom Africa and Floyd Shivambu. He said we must look into, I don't know how I'm going to look into that kind of a thing, but he's basically saying, look, this guy and Newsroom Africa, you must look into them, right? He criticized political analysts and commentators. You know that meme which says, why am I in it? Why am I in it? He was critical of political analysts and commentators, and basically spoke about going back to basics, going back to party principles, back to party cardinal pillars. Also spoke around how people who are campaigning for positions going to the next conference must not discuss slates on social media, discuss that in the branch. He spoke about the nature of a branch, what must a good branch look like, what does a branch leader look like, various levels of leadership, and the nature and essence of EFF leadership. All of the things, these are things that he discussed here. So some more thoughts from me now. I'm a commentator, I must commentate, I must analyze, I must react, right? So I know he said you mustn't listen to commentators, but we must listen to commentators. We must listen to commentators. Magliwe, also on the commentator side. Look, here's what I think. I think that Julius is a strong and talented politician. Even now, I think that he's a strong and talented politician, and this was him getting back into a different mode of his political bag of tricks, right? So I think that that's something that is, we can all agree on, that Julius is a strong and talented politician. Number two, I think that the media criticism is fair. Mainstream media was more generous to the Democratic Alliance, the multi-party charter, even when they were saying nonsense, what give during the campaigns, even when they were complaining, why is Rise Mzansi campaigning, why is the News 24, Daily Maverick, several other publications, they were very generous to John Steenhuisen, even though the campaign that the DA was running was lackluster, offensive, uncreative, they were still willing to accommodate the DA, banning of flags. There's so much that the media really could have really gone harder on the DA than. I think they were charitable to the DA, particular publications more than others. I think that the reporting that Julius was negotiating to be vice president or thought he was going to be in the coalition, I don't trust that reporting, or I don't find it credible, or I don't find it believable. The Sunday Times, I don't think that they got that story correct. I think that they gave the ANC version more weight, because they were speaking to many sources. They were speaking to Floyd, I suspect was their EFF source. They were speaking to MK people. I don't know who they spoke to there, but I think they were also speaking to ANC people. And the ANC people were like, no, Julius wanted this, Julius wanted that. I think that needed to be verified with evidence. I think we needed to be shown an SMS of Julius saying, I want to be vice president. We need more evidence, because otherwise it's just gossip. And there's nothing in the circumstantial evidence which suggests that Julius wanted to be vice president. It was very clear that the Democratic Alliance did not want to be part of the coalition with the EFF. From 2019, they were saying that the EFF was the enemy. It was very clear that the markets did not want the EFF in the coalition or the MK. And it was also very clear, right, that there was very low appetite from President Ramaphosa's side. I mean, the EFF has been holding his feet to the fire on this Phala matter, a variety of issues. He's a neoliberal billionaire. Why on earth would he give a position so influential to Julius Malema while at the same time undermining one of his strongest contenders within the ANC proper, Paul Mashatile? The whole story to me does not make logical sense, and the circumstantial evidence does not back it up. Look, I'm going to say something as my third point. I think Julius Malema is fair to criticize analysts and commentators. It's contested terrain. We have to do our thing, but we have to be measured on the quality of our work and analysis. And I think that's fair. That's fair. I don't feel any type of way that people say, no, this analyst and that analyst or whatever. I think it's fair. I think, it's one of the... Being an analyst is like being an amapiano artist. Anybody can rock up and say that I'm analyzing now. They can just get whatever equipment and start. You can even see people on SABC or Newsroom Africa, whatever, who you've never seen before. They've never been doing this thing, and all of a sudden they show up there and they start saying any amazing type of thing. Some professors even who are called in, sometimes they say bizarre things, I remember this one professor was asked a hypothetical question about what would he do or what would he think if President Cyril Ramaphosa was found to have done something unlawful. That professor froze. He was like, I won't be drawn into speculation. But that professor always is critical of Zuma, is critical of Malema, is critical of a lot of people. But when he was asked about President Ramaphosa, he all of a sudden he glitched. Error. I think it's fair, right, to have those conversations. Right. Number 5, I think that the EFF is currently on a plateau, but I don't think that they're on a downward trajectory. I really think that they are still in a position to consolidate and even to grow. A lot of factors in this election, I think, were not in their favor in particular, and obviously the MK factor was a big disruptor. But they were still able to get 1.5 million votes, and that is a solid base, and that is a large amount of voters. Many parties came in. One party was given 35 million, couldn't even get to the gate to start the race. They just dropped out because even with that 35 million, with the support of FNB and all of these things, this Roger Jardine guy, he couldn't get it. Some other parties got lots of money. They couldn't necessarily get the kind of traction that the EFF was able to get. So this was a very contested election. MK was a surprise factor. And obviously the EFF does not have support of mainstream media in the way that other political entities do. But they were able to get 1.5 million voters. That is a large amount of voters. I think also, this is my 7th point, that I think there's a lot of talent in the ranks of the economic freedom fighters, and we can't ignore that. We can't ignore what Sihle Lonzi has been doing. We can't ignore what Vuyani Pambo did. We can't ignore several other people. There's so many, Naledi Chira, you name it, Veronica Mente, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. The talent pool within the EFF is quite deep at this particular point. They've been able to find young people, groom those young people, get them into positions where they find a voice, speak up, and actually have control social media, run serious obligations and operations. Those people have energy, they have talent, they are hungry. I would not discredit this. I think that there's more talent in the EFF than there is in the Democratic Alliance or the ANC. If you measure talent based on bring your CV, bring your SRC record, bring your community track record, I think you'll find that many of the EFF people are actually more talented than ANC people or DA people, head to head. Obviously, they are a radical party. Many people don't agree with their policies, ideas, etc. But I think, who can you say really is more talented than Mbuyiseni Ndlozi within the DA? Right now, their leader has got a matric. So I'm just being frank here. Let's be real, right? So this is not to say, no, this guy is an EFF analyst or whatever. If you cannot, as a referee, which is how I sometimes view analysts, call the shots how they land, then you're not objective, you're just subjective. You don't have a system, a metric. So we have to have ways of, even if I say EFF does this well, you can't catch feelings about that. If I say MK does well, you can't catch feelings about this. If I say the DA has done this well, which I did say about the issue of the 300 million that was exposed, you can't have feelings about that. I'm trying to give you my unvarnished perspective. Anyway, I think that the EFF has got a strong talent pool. I think that the members of the EFF who watch this particular presentation from Malema are going to be satisfied with this speech. Time will tell, I could be wrong, and if I am, bring me back here and we'll talk about it. But I think that it was a solid speech from Julius Malema. I still think, and this is my final point, that this is the biggest challenge that the EFF is facing. In spite of everything that was said, I think it is a big challenge, and what will determine the outcomes is how the EFF operates between now and their conference, right? Part of what will determine the outcomes is whether or not other big names move to MK. But I don't know if we'll see a lot of other names because they may not necessarily have the same career prospects now within MK and also trajectories to grow within MK. Because joining MK now, you're joining at the back of the line. Where are you going to actually go? What positions are you actually going to get? How safe and secure are you going to be within the MK, considering that there's still a lot of turnover in positions? So we'll see what happens. But I think this is going to be a testing moment for the EFF. You either rise to the occasion or you fall into the annals of history. And now this is going to be a test for the EFF. Let's see what happens. What do you think, though? I'm curious to hear. Were you watching the Julius Malema speech? What did you think about his performance, his demeanor, his presentation, his arguments? Who do you believe? Do you believe Floyd? Do you believe Julius? Are you an EFF supporter? Have you followed the EFF? Did you vote EFF? Let's have a conversation. I'm keen to hear from you. Till the next one.